In this video we will go through the settings of my Kindle Paperwhite Signature Edition, the settings I use for reading a lot of books. But let's start with the general settings from the library screen. Let's click on these three dots up here. And here you see some settings you can do. We go into settings. And from here we have the account settings. We don't go through that. We have the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth settings. I have always only Wi-Fi on this device and not Bluetooth because I don't listen to audiobooks on my Kindle. So I only have Wi-Fi on. On the device options here, we can go in there. You see I have display cover on. The display settings, I have a night light off, and we have a warmth schedule instead. This means that when the device knows that the sun is about to go down here where I live, then it raises the warmness of the light all up to 13. I have chosen that 13 would be the max warmth light. You can set it what you want, but I think 13 is an excellent choice between cold and warm light. So up to 13 it sets the warmth automatically for me when the sunset, with the sunset and sunrise and so on, as you can see there. And then I have a device passcode. I don't have that. You can restart the Kindle from here. Advanced options, I don't think I have any. We have the device time. I have the normal stuff here. And as you can see here, I have 26, almost 27 gigabyte free of 27. So not much used of the storage yet on this. So that was the device options. We have reading options. Here I don't have page refresh on. If you have that on, it refreshes the display with every page turn. That will make the display, the page very clean with no artifacts and so on, but it will also drain your battery a lot faster, and I don't think the artifacts is so much. As you can see here, we have some ghostiness before a page update, a refresh of it. But to me, when reading, I don't get so bothered with it because it refreshes the page for about 10 or 15 pages or so. So if you have that off, it still refreshes, but not as often. I have a vocabulary builder on because when you look up different words and so on, then you have that stored on the device. You can go and check all those words later on. That's really good to have for me. Language and dictionaries. I am a Swedish person and I talk Swedish normally, but I have, of course, this is in English because you don't have Swedish as a choice here. So the device is in English. And I have two keyboards, one English and one Swedish. So here we have an option for a Swedish keyboard at least, so that's nice. Dictionaries, I have English dictionary and apparently an Italian installed. I didn't know that. But these are the dictionaries I use. That was the language and dictionaries options. Accessibility, I don't have any of those activated. Parental control, I have no such activated. So that was the general settings of this device. Well, if we open a book, let's say this Brad Thorpe book, these are the settings I use personally when reading books. As you can see, a very large font, a bold font, and that is because I use normally reading glasses. So with these settings, I don't need my reading glasses, and I think that's awesome because it's very tiresome to always have my reading glasses everywhere. But with these large font, bold font, I don't need reading glasses on reading on this e-ink device. When reading on my iPhone, by the way, using this new pop socket, I think it's awesome to read on this one. But even with so large font and bold font, I need to use reading glasses. And that is the difference between this OLED display and this e-ink display. So an e-ink display is so much easier for the eyes to read on. So here I just need to raise the font size and have a bold font size to read without reading glasses. That's awesome to me. So if I scroll down here, you see some of my settings. The brightness is automatic, auto brightness, because this is the signature edition. You have auto brightness. So it uses this sensor at the top to see how much brightness it needs in this environment. And here I have some studio lights and so on. So I think that's is why it has some brightness on now, because it is a bit confused on how. But if you are outside in the direct sunlight, then this is usually 0 when it comes to brightness, because it doesn't need any brightness when you have too much light. If you have a lot of light inside too, then the brightness doesn't need to be as high. And as I said, the warmth light is automatic, so when the sun is going down here, it will raise it up to 13. That's nice. But somehow it has 18 in the brightness at the moment. I don't know why, but it shouldn't have that because this is a quite bright environment. You can, though, calibrate this sensor if you like. I have a video on my channel on how to calibrate the light sensor on your signature edition Kindle. Usually I have around 13 when inside reading, for example in the bedroom. I usually have 13. But as you see, it needs more here. It raises it again. So let's have that though. We can go to these settings instead. As you see, I have Bluetooth off, flight mode off. I have sync on, of course, and that's why I don't have flight mode on, because I want to sync my books between my devices. I read a lot on my iPhone, totally in sync with this Kindle, so I need to have them synced all together. So that's why I have sync on and flight mode off. I never use dark mode. I think the dark on a Kindle or any other e-ink device is not dark enough. Let's see for yourself. When reading on this, you see it's quite black now though, but when you have a totally dark room reading, this is more gray than black. And I don't like that. I don't like that at all. So I never use the dark mode. I think it's much better to read with this white background with black text, even in a very dark room. Just lower the brightness so that you have enough light to read on. I think that's the best way of doing it. We can go into all settings here. Once again, we have the same settings we looked at earlier. So if you click on the display instead, we have these settings. And this is a document and not an ebook. I have bought this book elsewhere and side-loaded it. Not side-loaded it with a cable. I always use wireless side-loading, so I use the send to Kindle instead. And then I don't get exactly the same settings as with a book you buy from Amazon Kindle store. So the settings are different from a side-loaded book or a book you have bought on the Kindle store. But let's go through them. We start with the 3 dots. We have the vocabulary builder. We can sync manually here if you want. Disable touchscreen. I don't want to do that, of course, because I need to be able to swipe left and right and so on. But you can do that. But if we go into the font settings here, you see that I have a custom theme, as you see there. And my custom settings are these. As you see, I use the Amazon Ember font, as you see there. And I have the size of 4 in bold, as you see there. That's why the texts are more bold than normally. And I have a size 11 of the font. This is the best settings for my eyes when reading without reading glasses. But if I should read with reading glasses instead, then I would have a lot smaller size, maybe 8 or so. But I usually have these large fonts. I also like to swipe often. It feels like I'm reading faster, and that is a psychological feel. So if you have larger font, then it feels like you're reading faster because you need to swipe often. So that's why I use this setting here. And we go to layout. I have orientation in portrait mode, of course. I don't like to read in landscape mode. We have very thin margins. I would rather have even thinner if that was possible, but these are the thinnest bezel margins I could have. And because this is a document and not a real e-book according to Amazon, so then I can't use the alignment settings as you see there. But the spacing is in the middle there, not the most spacing and not the less spacing. It's the middle option for me that works best with these font settings. In the more settings we have reading progress. I have at the moment time left in chapter, but you can, of course, when reading, choose to click on that to see how much left in the book. You can also see the location of the book. And once again, you see how much is left in the chapter. That is how I do in the more settings. The more settings here, time left in chapter, as you see. I have all these options on. Here you can have show clock while reading. I like to have that. Some people think it's stressful to have the clock up there, but I think it's good because then I don't need to check the time on my Apple Watch or my iPhone all the time. So I like to have the watch up there to see the clock, the time. Book mentions on. Identifies names of other books mentioned in this book. I've never seen that for real, how that works, but I have that on. About this book, show information about the book when open for the first time. I have that on, of course. Popular highlights, display passages that are most frequently highlighted by other Kindle users. I have a highlight menu, automatically show the highlight menu when you select a passage of text. Of course I have that on because I like to highlight. Page turn animation, I have that off Other people like to have an animation when turning pages, but on a Kindle I don't want that. On Apple Books, on my iPhone for example, I really like to have the page turn animations, but on the Kindle I don't like that. I don't know why really. I think it's too slow maybe. So if I turn that off, it feels more natural for me turning pages. So I have that off. Wordwise is on. So I have never seen that in action either yet, even if I have read a lot of books, but I have that on. These are for Chinese characters, I don't use that. So that is my settings there for reading my books. If we have some more settings here maybe. No, we don't have more settings. So that is actually my personal settings for reading books. And as I said, I don't have page animations on, as you can see. I don't like that. This way, turning pages works better for me. So this is how I have my settings. Do you have any personal settings on your Kindle? Tell me in the comments if you have that. It would be interesting to see if you have some other settings than I have. Okay, bye.